Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Where's Marty? The 12 traditions are to the group as the 12 steps are to the individual. Tonight I've asked Marty to read them for us. There you go.
Hi, my name's Marty. I'm an alcoholic and addict. Hi, everybody. The 12 traditions. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, and TV. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Great, thank you, Marty. As I said, there are two speakers, and then we have a primary speaker. I've been appraised as something. You suppose the choir section here could give us a happy birthday for our main speaker, who was 24 years old just recently? Clancy.
My name is Clancy.
It's supposed to go the other way.
My name is Clancy Imislund, and I'm an alcoholic. Before the meeting, some young lady named Sue, who I never saw before, sidled up and gave me a present that she thought I'd never had before, and I never had. And I'm proud to share it with the podium. It's a genuine spider ring. And Sue, I want to thank you very much for that. I'm glad to be here tonight, safe and sane and sober, as I like to say, because I didn't used to be, and I may not be again. The man that taught me that, I thought he was kidding, but he got drunk and died. My first sponsor, when I was sober this time, and that's the thing to remember. We get so caught up. I was thinking tonight when our first 10-minute speaker was talking about the obsessions of his paper at school. And we all have our own obsessive characteristics, especially when we're in an insecure position. Dennis, I know that over the years, has obsessed many times about his education. Very few people know that Dennis is going to be one of the first people in this area to get a degree in submarine engineering. For 12 years, all his grades have been below sea level. I live in the area, folks. We all have obsessive things, and they usually have something to do with insecurity or positions in which you cannot defend yourself. And as his position was, turning in a paper that he knew he could do much better on, and then you have to try to defend it to yourself, then you have to worry about it, and on and on. And we all are guilty of that sort of thing, or if it's a guilt, it certainly is a human tendency. It happens to all human beings, and it perhaps happens to us a little more intensely, or it seems to happen more intensely for two reasons. One reason, of course, being that we are perhaps a tad less mature in some areas than some people. And secondly, we are rank among the very few people in the world who talk about such things. Most people don't talk about such things. They grind with them. They get ulcers. It's a funny thing in AA, and I wouldn't hold this as a hard and fast rule, but I have never seen it fail. I have never seen anyone who was practicing the program of Alcoholics Anonymous who got ulcers. Ulcers is a disease caused by non-communication and introversion and conflict. Now, we all have conflict. It's a kind of an amazing thing. You think about the races of the world, the traditional strong races, of which I am one, the Nordic races, big, impassive. Japanese are impassive. The volatile, weak ones are the Italians and the French and the Latins, and they're all, just really, nobody ever wants to be a bronzed Italian god. You want to be a bronzed Viking god. That's so when you die, you will not be just sunk into a hole. You'll be put into a Viking ship and sent out to Santa Monica Harbor. But human beings are pretty much the same. It's a kind of an amazing thing. The impassive races, the Scandinavian and the Japanese, lead the world in suicide rate. Much, much higher than the volatile Latins who talk and wave their arms and complain and bitch and whine and mamma mia, while the Viking god stands there. I'm okay. There's something to be said about communication. But also communication, sometimes in AA it has an alternate reason. Sometimes you can sit in AA meetings, I used to do this years ago, and hear people communicating emotions. And I didn't hear them communicating them in the advertising agency that I was working in, or the newspapers, or the university I was teaching in. And I thought to myself, what am I doing with these weak, sick neurotics? Bitch, 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 and they all got troubles, and they're all weak, and I want to be strong. And I left AA and I went out to be strong, and not so very long after that, I was strong enough to go into my garage and turn on the motor and go to sleep and die. And if the guy next door hadn't heard the motor running and pulled me out and got my heart started, I'd have been an obscure gravestone in a Texas graveyard now. But that's where you go by being strong. Being strong is illusion. And one of the reasons that we sometimes feel people are strong, I suppose, is because there's a trap you fall into. I used to think I was the only one who fell into it. Then after I got sober, I heard a lot about it in AA, so I thought, here's other people falling in the trap. And then I got back working in the corporate world again after I was sober, and working in large corporations and doing public relations for oil companies and marketing for big firms. And I got to know presidents of corporations and chairmen who I used to envy and see up close that they have the same trap. And that trap is a kind of a human trap of all people. It maybe happens to us a little bit more often because, as I say, among the threads that go through alcoholic personalities are rather an accentuated thread of insecurity. Insecurity is a human thing, but most of us have been familiar with more of it, perhaps. And that trap is the falling into feeling different, or feeling alienated, or feeling unliked, or feeling like you don't fit in, or feeling different. And I'm sure there isn't a person in this room who hasn't spent a lot of time in their life feeling different. I've said this several times. I'll say it one more time because I'd like to hear it. I wish someone would appoint me to be the Betsy Ross of Alcoholics Anonymous and design a flag that we could all gather under and march on Washington and demand our rights. You know, every other group of misfits marches on Washington and stumbles around. If I could design... The trouble is with our leadership, we'd all wind up in Seattle and say, here we are. Now what do we do? But if I had to design a flag for alcoholics, it wouldn't say, I need booze or give me a drink. It would say, but you don't understand. And if there's a universal word of all alcoholics I've ever met, but you don't understand. And that when you feel different, and when you feel alienated, and when you feel left out, and when you feel different than, one of the things people instinctively do, and we do it a lot because we feel that way, have felt that way a lot, you begin looking around you, comparing yourself against others to see why you were different, or how you are different, or therefore what you might be able to do about it. And the one thing that, and everybody does it sometimes, and there's only one thing wrong with it. The answer you get is always wrong. And the reason the answer is always wrong is because the comparer never stops to realize he is comparing his inside against other people's outside. And I think as a result of that, it's safe to say, you will never see anyone who looks as sensitive as you feel when you feel sensitive. Because you are not looking at their emotions. You're looking at a defense mechanism they spent 30 years building to conceal their emotions. And when they look at me, they see a defense mechanism that I've built. But I think they're seeing my emotions, but they're not. I think it's safe to say you'll never see anyone who looks as though they have ever had the anxiety you have when you have anxiety. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of anxiety. There's anxiety such as our speaker had tonight about his paper. There's true anxiety like Dennis has about total economic collapse and surviving in the desert. Now those are real things. But the type of anxiety that is most troublesome is when you can't even think of a reason for the anxiety. It's just a kind of a free-floating anxiety. I've sat in a lot of places where I was supposed to be a hotshot in my day, boy, years ago, and thought, I wonder what these people would say if I ever told them how I really felt. When my boss came in the morning and said, how you doing, kid? Oh, I'm scared. Well, what are you scared of? Beat the shit out of me. I suspect they would not be acceptable answers. The correct answer is, how you doing? Fine. How are you, sir? Just getting out some tired blood here. I think it's safe to say you'll never see anyone who feels as who looks as lonely as you feel when you feel lonely. When I was young and didn't know much, I used to think loneliness was something that happened to you when you were alone. As I got older, I realized the worst forms of loneliness are those feelings that assail you in the middle of crowds where you feel alienated. It's kind of, in fact, sitting alone. That sounds sad, but that really is there's kind of a delicious agony to that. You just sit and drink. If you're a romanticist, a music lover. Incidentally, I want to tell you, the birthdays tonight brought tears to my eyes. Not because I'm into birthdays, but I'm a music lover. Just Jesus Christ. I want to talk to your choir director tomorrow if I can. But to play a record, perhaps. Think about her. Try to remember what her name was. What town she'd been in. Knowing if I'd have stuck with her, I wouldn't be like this. I don't know where she is, but it isn't that dragon in the kitchen, I'll tell you that. And I always used to sing along with the record, you know. Pretty little bluebirds fly over the rainbow, why can't I? Now that sounds sad, but it's really kind of delicious. It's like having you just setting up your own cross and you hang for a while. So sad, oh sad. I guess there must be young guys doing that today. I can't think people are that much different. It must be a bitch with this modern music, you know. Makes you spill your drink just. But we don't judge. Unlike Dennis, I started off as a liberal and I've been moving steadily right ever since. It's been my opinion, when you're 21, if you're not a liberal, you haven't got a heart. When you're 51, if you haven't not a conservative, you haven't got a head. We don't discuss politics in AA, however. I'll tell you, and then that's the end of it. There's no discussion. I think it's safe to say you'll never see anybody who looks frightened like you feel. You'll never see anybody who looks insecure like you feel when you look. And about the only times you ever look are when you're feeling some of these emotions. Because when you're not feeling them, you don't even look, you don't compare. And as a result, in your efforts to feel, to identify with others, you wind up feeling more alienated. The more you compare, the more alienated you become. So it's almost like you're watching a thing going down this hill. And that's these emotions, these feelings, these differences. Both the speakers talked about them tonight. All three of us are from absolutely diverse areas, diverse backgrounds, diverse situations, diverse families, diverse everything. And the one thing we all have in common is that we have a life that was characterized by insecurity, feeling different, alienation. Now, all of these things doesn't make you an alcoholic. There are a lot of people who have all of these feelings who are not alcoholic. There's a medical term for them. People who live in continuing discomfort in reality. They are known as intense or acute neurotics. They see reality, but they cannot cope with it well. The difference between a neurotic and a psychotic is a psychotic, to kind of oversimplify it, his mind alters the way things look so it brings him some relief. A neurotic can't do that. He sees them as they are, and it's a drag. There's no joke about it, and it sounds dumb, but it's really true. A neurotic believes that 2 + 2 equals 4, and he can't stand it. He knows it equals 4. A psychotic believes that 2 + 2 equals 5, and he's pleased. Yeah, that's it. When the young man who took his birthday cake, talked about the reunion at Camarillo. That must be kind of exciting to see all the old classmates there. I'm still doing graduate work, George. I visit my insane asylum every year down in Texas, where I was put to spend the rest of my life. Once upon a time, because they examined me. There was nothing in my commitment talks about drinking at all. I was cold sober. That was one of the reasons that I was in such a state. I had to hold my job. I was on the faculty of the University of Texas at El Paso. That was my night job. And my day job was writing on an advertising agency. I had a weekend job writing sports. And I had and I had a wife that kept having children. I was under a lot of pressure. And they finally told me I'd been acting. Dean called me and said, "You've been acting a little bizarrely in Juarez, haven't you?" And I said, "No, I haven't." But I didn't say anything at all. I acted just like Dennis. A hand came out of my shirt. And I said, that's how I always responded under pressure. He made me stop drinking. And I stopped drinking so long that I just couldn't stand it. One day I just tried to commit suicide. And they took me down to the El Paso Psych Ward and examined me, determined I was a schizoid, depressive, who was unsafe on the streets. And like these two guys, I felt the same thing. I thought, Jesus, how little they know. If I could get my personalities down to 2, I could make it from there. It's this endless group therapy that goes on. What do you think? I don't know. Let's ask him. And I go to that nut house every year because I was there briefly and I escaped. And they brought me back and gave me a lot of electric shock treatments. I was put in the violent porch of the violent ward, and I was a tough case. I was there a long time. Almost a year, just getting my sense together again after, I didn't know this for about 5 years after I was sober. But I was down there at that hospital. They said, they told me I should feel pleased with myself. I had set a record. I had the most electric shock treatments ever administered in that hospital. 48. And I'll tell you, when you get 30, you're not much chance of coming back. And they gave me 48 to bust me. And one thing, when you take a lot of shock treatments, I don't remember ever taking one. I don't remember anything that happened. Anything I tell you about that period is just hearsay, because a lot of shock treatments just leaves a hole in your life. When you first come to, that hole is 5 years long. The last memory I had was being in San Francisco, and they told me I was confined for life in Texas. I didn't remember ever coming to Texas. But it comes back, and just the only thing gone now is that summer. I cannot remember the opera I directed. Mephistopheles, it's called, by Boito. But I remember a few years ago, I went down and got the record from the library and played it. And it's like hearing music that you've heard somewhere across the lake on a summer night, the band playing. I know it's coming next, but but when I go back to that nut house now, I sometimes, the violent porch on the violent wing, it isn't very dramatic as it sounds. It's just a 2-story old brick building. It looks like something out of the classic 19th century insane asylum. The new buildings are over there. But here's this old building, and up on the second floor there's bars and a thick screen over the windows. And you can, if the light is right, you can see silhouettes in there. And what they do on the electric shock porch, they just watch the silhouettes go. I know what they're doing, other people maybe not. You walk till you come to a wall, and then you turn around and walk back. That's all you do all day, because you don't know your name, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what's going on. And I stand there, remember, I go down there and talk at their alcoholic ward. I was never there as an alcoholic, but I've been back there many times, for many years. And I go back there and I talk and I explain to these guys in the alcoholic ward about my feelings, but my number one goal is to stand outside. I walk over here 50 yards into that old 2-story brick building, and I watch those silhouettes and I think, there is no way known to medical science, psychiatric science, AA, God, there is no way that a shuffling, broken man up there can be standing down here in a slick-fitting suit feeling sharp on top of the world. There is no way that can happen. That is the great thing about what I have, the one thing I denied till it almost killed me. But to go back to what I was talking about, there's neurotics. And it's a very unpleasant life. And you see them a lot in group therapy. And they go to psychologists, they go to psychiatrists, and sometimes they take medically prescribed Valium, and they take things that to tide them through. And it's an ongoing, they get just to be nudges their whole life. Just terrible. Now, the difference between them and an alcoholic is a dramatic difference, but it's one that no alcoholic that I ever knew about. And the difference is, now, part of it they knew about, but not the part that helps you. I suppose the biggest problem anybody ever has in this organization is getting a handle on the nature of the illness. Because everybody in this goddamn organization is an authority. Everybody. If you've been sober 17 minutes, you can get some guy 13 minutes and start, now here's what you better do. And that's fine, because the new guys had to do that. But you got to be careful that you don't pass along a bunch of misinformation that leaves them more baffled and thinking, what a bunch of shit that is, and cutting out. The nature of this illness and its lack of understanding is what causes well over 95% of alcoholics to die from it. I'm in a position that most of you are not in. I see alcoholics die every day. Men who, if I had the power, I'd reach out and put my hand on their shoulder and say, God damn it, like one of these TV ministers, and say, be healed, be healed. Because I can't. But these guys, they die, and the last thing they know is they weren't really alcoholics anyway. Because an alcoholic, what is that, an alcoholic? What's the difference between an alcoholic and a neurotic misfit? It's that alcohol has a special effect on you. Now, what do you think that effect is? You hear all sorts of things. I did. I was in and out of AA for years as a slipper. For years. 9 years. I'll tell you, I'm an authority on slipping. I may not be an authority on much else, but I don't know. I've never heard of a slip that I could not empathize with. And it very nearly killed me, because I came as a high-bottom drunk, and I eventually slipped down till I was being banned out of Skid Row missions. And that's the thing. People say to me, why do you always come down on me for slipping so hard? I say, because I'm trying, go ahead and slip. But unfortunately, when you slip, then you bitch about what's happening to you. If you're willing to accept all of it, go slip and be damned. But don't keep whining back. Jesus, look what happened to me. Screw you. If you want to drink, enjoy it, asshole. He said with a spiritual smile. I don't mean to look didactic or one way about this, but I'll tell you, some of the great anti-slippers of all time are the people who have slipped themselves right to the edge of the grave. That's why I'm against it. That's why I am intolerant of slipping. If I'd have found 2 more guys who'd have been tolerant of my slips, I'd have died. Thank God I found some old guy in the AA club in LA that said, I don't want to hear about it. Either do it or get your ass out of here. And I would have reasoned with him, except some guy just kicked my front teeth out and I couldn't really get those vowels. A hand came out of my shirt and grabbed my gum. Now, we all hear all the time in AA that alcohol has a special effect on you. What is that effect? Does it make you drunker than other people? No, not really. In fact, I think it's safe to say that in almost any group, the problem drinkers can handle their alcohol better than social drinkers. Mostly. That's why alcoholics are always driving social drinkers home who try to keep up with them drink for drink. They got no tolerance. They're really a pain in the ass, are what they are. What's the worst night of the year to be on the streets? New Year's Eve, absolutely. Because amateur drunks are out there. They don't know when they're going to throw up. But, anybody in this room from experience, you always got 20 seconds. You just recognize, oh, pardon me, just a second. Anybody got a cert? These goofs don't recognize. They just think, why my stomach's acting funny. Well, anyway, I was telling Fred, I said to him, anybody in this room, I'm sure, you've done it a lot of times without even being aware of it. When you're suddenly the world tilts. We just assume. They just fall down. What's the matter with you? They don't know how to drive like this. Smash into cars and trees. Probably one of the most incriminating things you can say about non-alcoholics that I've thought about this many times. Non-alcoholics say, I'm afraid I've had a little too much. Would you mind driving my car home? Have you ever said that? It's my goddamn car, and I'll drive the goddamn car! Non-alcoholics are a pain in the ass. That's what they are. It isn't that you get drunker. Is it that, what is it? That alcoholics do more bizarre things? I don't think so. I've seen non-alcoholics, on their infrequent drunks, do terribly bizarre things. Sometimes. There is a difference, though, and that little difference is something I never thought of. And I considered myself brilliant. I had a high IQ. I was smart in so many areas, not just smart in the areas of scholasticism, but in sports and athletics and music and writing, and I knew everything. And the one thing I never learned till I almost died from it was the difference is not what alcohol does to you at all. The difference is what alcohol does for you. That's what makes an alcoholic. Alcohol does something for me that it doesn't do for 93% of the people who drink, and you would never, ever find it out if you lived to be 5,000 years old. There's a window peeper out there. And he looks behind him. What? Let's call it neurotic misfit, is what I call it. Give him my spider ring. I don't have my wolf bane, just my spider ring, don't I? What does alcohol do? Alcohol does something for me it doesn't do for most people, and it does for you, I'm sure, or you wouldn't be here, and you don't even know it. And sometimes you have to work on the answer for it for years before you find out what the problem was. But that's the nature of the illness. Alcohol has the ability to almost instantly alter my perception of reality. And I never knew that in once. I knew it made me feel better. Alcohol has almost instantly the ability to alter my relationship to my environment, whatever that environment is. Alcohol almost instantly makes me larger and more self-contained, and then smaller and less frightening. I literally can do something that no neurotic can do. I can induce temporary psychosis. I can make reality look different until it gets less frightening. I literally can induce temporary psychosis. To me, that's all. I never had any argument with that second step. Came to believe that a power greater than myself would restore me to sanity, would restore me not to ever have to induce psychosis to stand it. To live in reality. But to know that isn't to do it. And the great problem of alcoholics is they keep fighting the effects of alcohol. And that's why most people like you and me will die from it. That's why if this is an average AA meeting, something over half of us will die drunk. Not because AA doesn't work, but because we keep thinking the enemy's out there. The enemy's in here. The enemy is in here. That old Snoopy cartoon says, we have discovered the enemy and it is us. Our life consists of we came, we saw, we left. Hardly what we had hoped for. The most difficult thing for me to conceive is that my problem is not alcohol. My answer is alcohol. And time after time when I got sober, I said, it will be different. And it was for a little while, but it isn't. Getting sober and saying it's going to be different this time. It's like, for years I had the panel on the Terminal Island Federal Penitentiary, and listen to these poor boobs say, when I get out of here, boy, it's going to be all right. I used to hurt my heart to have to tell them, I got some bad news for you, kid. Terminal Island isn't what puts you in Terminal Island. Out there where it's all right, that's what puts you in Terminal Island. And it hasn't gotten any better since you've been in here. And we got out of the hospitals and these treatment. One of the great knocks on treatment centers, they either, I don't know, guess they can't believe they do it intentionally, but maybe it's inadvertently. They get these poor fools to think when you get out of here, now you're going to be all right. It's like going from here to Catalina, and you get on a ship and it takes you outside of the harbor and then turns back and says, okay, you're going to be all right. We go back now. And that's what makes AA so difficult, because AAs come by in an invisible boat. Said, you want to ride? Christ, no, not with that. I'd rather take my chance with a boat that's going to turn back than no boat. Two nuts in an invisible boat. Pretty soon you might get desperate and say, I'll try it. They bring in the boat, they say, row. But there's no goddamn oar. Row. Well, it's bullshit. If you get desperate enough, I'd like to get in again. All right, row. And the funny thing, as you row, the boat appears. The boat does not appear until you begin rowing an invisible oar. It's the goddamnedest thing in the world. But the reason that it's so difficult to understand is because hardly anybody I ever known, I never knew anybody except the people ahead of me in AA who were able to tell me, the curse of alcoholism, I don't suffer from an alcohol problem. I suffer something called alcoholism. And the hallmarks of alcoholism is an unnatural reaction to alcohol, which either causes or is caused by extraneous, an unnatural reaction to reality. And by the time your answer now gets to be a problem and reality is a problem, you are screwed. That is called alcoholism, and most everybody will die from it, sooner or later. Not by staying drunk all the time. In chapter 3, it delineates it perfectly. It says, the great obsession of people like you and me is that somehow, someday, we think we will control and enjoy our drinking. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many of us pursue it into the gates of insanity and death. Not out of malice, not out of not caring. That's one of the funny things. Most families of alcoholics think they just don't care. And you have no way to explain to them. I care so goddamn much I can't stand it. And the reason that's important to know is so you might not get carried away into thinking that somehow being sober is going to make you happy. The purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous is not to get you sober. If getting sober was the answer, detoxes would turn out winners. Hospitals would turn out winners. Toilet bowls would turn out winners. All sorts of things would turn out winners. The function of AA, to put it euphemistically, is to row some kind of goddamn invisible oar under the direction of two pukes in an invisible boat until the boat appears. And then after the boat appears, hopefully to keep rowing, because if you don't, the boat disappears again and you go back in the water. And the greatest enemy I have in this whole area is my own mind saying, you shouldn't have to do this anymore. Last night, as the secretary leader mentioned, I was at my home group, and we had somebody at the door counter. There were 750 people there for my 24th birthday. Not for my 24th birthday, but some people were there for my birthday, and some people were there because there's about 600 there every Wednesday night anyway. But my sponsor talked, and a big deal, and I know it made some people resentful because they said, Jesus Christ, it's some special big deal because it's your birthday. And I tried to explain to them, it's available to anybody. All you got to do is found a group and go to it every Wednesday night for 19 years and you get a special birthday. Shit, that's all there is to it. Some people don't want to put in all that trouble. They want to just jump to the top. I'm still trying to jump over my sponsor, and he won't let me up to the top, the old fool. But you know, my mind, if I hadn't conditioned myself for years, my mind would say, what am I sitting in these goddamn meetings for? Last night, in the middle of the night, something I ate, I guess yesterday, I got so sick, and I threw up all night, and I was just sick. And I got up this morning, and I went to work, because I had some things I had to do. I work in the middle of Skid Row, and, you know, by any means of most of my life, I would have said, man, get somebody else to go to 26th and Broadway tonight. I'm weak, and I've got rights. But I learned a long time ago, it is always easier in AA to take the action than to explain to yourself later why you didn't. That sounds so primary, but it took me years to learn that. I am not a wonderful man. Sometimes you hear in AA and people who have become wonderful men. They just... I've sat in this room 20 years ago with several wonderful men who just couldn't understand why I couldn't become wonderful. I'm the only one still sober, however. I've sat in rooms like this, and I've sat in places like this, and thank the God that somehow got someone to convince me of the most determinable fact in AA. And it's something we hear every night, and you never hear you just hardly ever talk about it. But it says, and you've heard this, I'm not telling you anything new, but it's something you might think about if you want to stay sober and get more comfortable. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. But we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And that's what we try to do here, to try to improve. We talked about a minute ago about New Year's Eve, what a dismal night. One thing good about New Year's Eve, you can make New Year's resolutions, and by God, change your life. And by about January 3rd, you think, oh shit, now I'll have to wait till next New Year's. The nice thing about AA, once you get into it, you discover that every night is New Year's Eve. Every night I can say, I really haven't done that very well. I'm going to try to do it better starting next year, tomorrow. And tomorrow, I may make it, and tomorrow I may not do as well as I'd hoped. But I got to be careful that I don't sell myself out and play that, the words I hate to hear in AA, from new people or old. I'm doing the best I can. Because I don't think anybody knows the best they can do until they get goaded. I'm doing so infinitely better than the best I ever thought I could do, I couldn't believe it. And I'm doing things sensational. But I mean, I'm into things like people like me have never been into. It sometimes brings tears to my eyes when I hear some boob get up that I've given a birthday cake to and say, what I like about my sponsors, he's consistent. He is reliable. And that's one thing I never was. My son plays center down here at St. Monica's High School. They're having a terrible year. They got moved up 2 leagues, and Christ, it's 26-man squad against 80-man squad. They're just getting the hell kicked out of them. But the coach down there said, you know, your son Clancy, he doesn't have a great deal of speed, and he doesn't have a great deal of native ability, but he's starting every week because he never quits. In the fourth quarter, he's hitting as hard as he could. The rest of the team is just falling apart, and he's out there taking his man and knocking him on his ass play after play. That Clancy's got no great ability, but he's no quitter. And I thought, that's the story of my life. Just turned around. All of my life, people have been saying to me, Clancy, you got a great deal of ability, but you're a goddamn quitter. And that's right. I've been a quitter all my life. And the nice thing is here, I've quit in AA any number of times in the past 24 years. I've quit, I've chickened out, I've laid down, I've sacrificed, I have sold out. And the nice thing was that tomorrow I could do it again different and gradually rebuild. You're never going to become wonderful. You're never going to become superlative here. No matter how hard you do this, you will never rise above human being. And human beings are notoriously imperfect. But what you can do here, I think, and I think the purpose of the 12 steps, the purpose of meetings, the purpose of sponsors to superimpose perceptions that you cannot see in your distortions, the reason for all of these things and involvement is to little by little do what alcohol used to do fast. To alter my perception of reality. To get rid of emotional clogs that have caused me to accentuate negativism and eliminate positivism and live in cynicism and sneering to cover up my own feelings of inadequacy and doubt and self-abnegation and my lack of self-worth and reason for being. The greatest thing I've gotten out of AA is no change I have seen in myself at all. I sometimes think I haven't changed one farthing in 24 years. But what has happened is, as I've thrown myself into this, everybody else in the world has gradually shaped up, little by little. And that's why I'm active tonight. I don't need AA. I don't need you people. But if I'm not here, they'll know about it on the freeway tomorrow morning. Say, the guy in the blue car, he didn't fill his commitment last night. I'm going to cut that son of a bitch off. I don't know how they know, but they act funny. So that's all we ask of you if you're new tonight. Just sacrifice yourself for the rest of your life, not for your sake, but to keep those assholes shaped up. Because when they're all right, I can make it. When they're not, I have a terrible time. That's what we are here for. That's why we gather together. This is the primary purpose group. And the primary purpose, as was read in the opening of this meeting, so the primary purpose is to obtain and maintain our sobriety. Obtaining your sobriety is nothing. Maintaining it is the single most difficult job you will have in your life. Not continually difficult. In fact, sometimes it gets too difficult when it gets easy. You just have to maintain a certain continuing vigilance that you will not allow yourself the luxury of thinking, I now have it together, I no longer need help to keep the world shaped up. That's how old-timers get drunk. They've been sober years and years and years, and they're tired of all this tedious bullshit. So they stop doing it, and you don't get drunk, but little by little the world around them goes to hell, and they get sourer and sourer, and one day they say, screw 'em, AA stinks too, and they all stink. And down they go. So that's why we gather here, partially to learn about it, partially to maintain it, but primarily to maintain a perception of reality most of the time that makes us able to walk with some degree of goddamn dignity into that world, wherever it may be, whether it's Wilshire Boulevard or Skid Row or Barstow Street in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. To walk in the world with some degree of dignity and knowing that I deserve to be where I am. And I have done the things that enable me to see it clearly. And to be grateful to AA and to God God helped me before I believed in him, and to sponsors and people who took time to steer me when by any rights they shouldn't have been bothering at all. They should have said, get that son of a bitch out of here. You took the time to give the old pat in the back, so you better take time to give some other puke a pat in the back and give them a chance to discover what it's like to live in a little human dignity before it's too late. Thank you.
Most inspiring meeting. It's funny, I was sitting here reflecting. The first time I heard this man speak was about 11 years ago, and I got up and walked out of the room, and I thought, he's crazy as hell. It took me 11 years to find out I was the crazy one. Thank you. My thanks tonight for all the participants, Marianne, Marty, Larry, Dennis, Clancy, and the birthday people. Let's give them another hand. We need 3 volunteers for cups and ashtrays. There's 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you very much. We'll sign court cards at the podium after the meeting, and we'll also take some more names and/or money for the Thanksgiving celebration. It's real important. It's a real treat. And the literature over here, the hardbound literature, is sold at our cost, and the softbound literature is at free. It's been a great meeting for me, and I'm glad to lead it. And once again, thanks for all the participants. And after a moment's meditation, Renee, would you lead us in a large prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Keep coming back.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.